All right, so I think it's me to start this time, so
We'll go with that.
We'll go with it, shall we? Okay, then.
I'm just going to go for passive aggressive this episode. I don't know why.
Yeah.
No reason for it. Just going to try it.
It's like today you woke up and you chose violence.
I chose violence. Yeah, that's it. Well, no, passive aggressiveness.
Passive aggressive. Sorry, it's the second level.
Yeah, it's the level down. Yeah,
passive aggressive, violence,
pure violence.
All right. Hello.
Toxic.
Damn it!
And that was perfectly timed.
That was beautifully timed. Hello and welcome to the DM's Book Club, a weekly book club podcast where we talk about some Dungeons and Dragons and discuss how we might include them in our role-playing campaigns. With me back again is my wonderful co-host, who's definitely not being passive-aggressive at all today, Hamilton. Hello, Hamilton.
Hello, Fiona. How are you? Since we last saw each other over 12 hours ago?
Yeah, 12 hours ago, less than 24 hours ago. Yes, you had a flying visit to my fair city and we just sort of met up for our usual of five guys, which is always lovely. And you've been back and forth to London quite a bit recently for various work things.
Back again tomorrow. 2 meetings. Busy.
But it was really lovely to see you because I haven't seen you in person since we did Dragon Meet and obviously the live show and stuff in person.
That's a good point. Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
Oh, good.
I was like, I've seen other people in person. It was like, oh, that was Am and Chloe and everyone like that.
You had your own little trip out to Am and Will's place to do some recording as well.
That should be coming out in February.
How exciting. Oh, but you're doing well otherwise? All RPG and D&D stuff?
Kickstarter's just going on.
It just keeps going and you're
keep
like...
going. Warhammer's doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Building some more. I did some painting, which was fun. It was nice to do a bit of painting the weekend. So that was good. How was Curse of Strahd? Because since I last saw you, you've had a Curse of Strahd session.
We have, we've had one or two. But we're going up Mount Garcus towards the Amber Temple. And you will have heard us talk about, obviously, Curse of Strahd when we talked to Travis last season about it. And now you know sort of that the Amber Temple is like the hardest bit in the game, essentially. There's a lot of encounters, all that sort of thing. They're level 6. And I haven't pushed them to go towards the temple. Like, one of the artifacts is there, and I kind of mentioned it, and they're like, we should just go. And I'm just going, okay, great. I guess we'll go then. And I'll be honest, the last session was really good. They fought off, like, the first bit of it where some gatehouse guardians came and attacked them. They almost threw Arena off the side of the cliff, which is always a tricky one because she's kind of important. Then they went into the guard tower and I'd put in there a skeleton to indicate that no one's ever been there and that person had frozen to death essentially over the however long.
I like it.
And then one of the players was like, well, I have animate dead, so I'm just gonna animate this creature. And thankfully it is an unseen servant. But then I was like, oh, but now I could put a bit more lore in that in Barovia, when you animate something like that, they do have some sort of, they're not just completely like no consciousness, etc. So they couldn't speak at all. But then I was able to put in like a little clues to the Order of the Dragons, the sort of Argynvost Holt place.
Yeah.
They took a long time getting over a stony bridge because they thought it was going to fall, which is a classic. Like, I'd scared them too much, so we just did 20 minutes doing that, which is fine. And then we ended the session by me throwing an avalanche at them. So classic
D&D with Fiona.
Well, they rolled quite high on the encounters, and I was like, well, I do have an avalanche encounter because you're going up a mountain essentially in a snowstorm. And and the best part is that in a couple of weeks' time, at time of recording, we are going to do an in-person session. So I do think we might be doing the Amber Temple in person.
That's great. So they're still on their way up the hill at the moment.
Yes, they haven't died yet. They haven't
died. I love that. It's like they're on their way up. They haven't died yet. I was like,
not yet. As anyone who's played through the Amber Temple knows, there's a great possibility that it might die straight away.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah,
but they do have like Liamon's tiny hut, which is basically like, let's quick.
Is it 10 rounds? It's 1 minute, isn't it?
To cast it, yes, but once you're in it, as long as the person who casts it lasts, as long as that person doesn't move out of it, and so they've got a nice little warm place. So they're very lucky in that respect. But but we'll see how that goes.
It's not a good combat like saver though, because you have to survive 10 rounds to do it. It's not like Rope Trick, which is like instant
go. Exactly. But yeah, so it's all good. But I did think to myself that if we'd finished the Amber Temple, I know stupidly I was like, we'll be right there, we'll do it in a couple of sessions, or they'll leave, etc. If we don't do the Amber Temple, I was thinking of maybe doing the we discussed it in the Book of Many Things episode, the dungeon with the cards. And I was like, because that would be quite fun to do that one in person, perhaps.
The maze-like one, you mean?
Yeah, the one where each room is card themed.
I love that.
I might learn that as a backseat, just in case something really bad happens. Like, I don't know, there's a TPK, and I'm like, all right, we go through level 2 and see if they can get out that way.
Oh, like as a sort of like, here's purgatory, here's a way out of purgatory.
Exactly.
If you can survive this, then you're back in the game.
Yeah.
If you don't, you're dead.
Oh, because we discussed how fun it was and how, like, because obviously it comes from that original sort of like the House of Cards adventure. It's very Fiona, I realized. I was like, yeah, I love like, it's this card, and then placing it down and be like, all that sort of thing. And going back quickly to Curse of Strahd, I know we need to get on with the actual episode in a second.
It's all right.
We should. I can't just constantly talk about my game for all the episodes of DM's.
Well, that's what I plan to be here for.
I found some ambient soundtracks specific to Curse of Strahd, including there was one that does the Madame Eva's readings as somebody just reads out all the cards, and you can put your own together with some music underneath it. So I thought of literally repatching what I did as a card reading with the voice. It's like the beast sits on his throne. It's very like that and you have a separate music track. So I was like, I could do this, and it sounds way too much effort, but I thought that's a nice quick repeat. We could just play it like that. So
I like that. Nice. Where did you find that? Did you say?
The people that do the Madame Ava tarot card ones, they're called the Guild of the Black Crow. And they do lots of ambient sort of like sounds specific to the Curse of Strahd, but to other ones as well. And then the other one is Sword Coast Soundscapes.
Sword Coast Soundscapes.
You can buy them on Bandcamp. They're on Spotify as well.
Oh, okay.
Like, I always use the RPG music maker person who's done like great concept album art, like very intense. But if you want sort of ambient sounds of like going up a mountain, etc., that's easily loopable. The Sword Coast Soundscapes and the Black Crow folks are. I used them as white noise as I was working yesterday. I'm up a mountain.
Yeah,
that's what I thought as well. But that's not. We're not here to talk about white noise soundscapes. Hamilton, what are we talking about today?
Rangers.
Oh no, back again.
Oh, sorry. Violence is no. We are talking about monks.
Yes.
Fists of fury. Kung fu fighting, martial artists supreme. I've never played a monk. Have you played a monk?
I've played it like 1 or 2 times, like as a one-off thing, and I did very cool things. I remember doing it, going, "Oh, this is really cool." And now, after reading the base sort of thing, so obviously today we're just going to look through the base class features and then the player's handbook classes if we get time to do it, etc. I'm like, oh, I'm actually really keen because I guess. For me, it's like, it makes sense of like, if you could see the battlefield, if it's more, rather than theatre of the mind, if you could see like an overview of like where everyone is on a map, you could really go, oh, so I'm going to move here, punch. I'm going to go over here, do a quick sort of key point thing, punch, and just work out your way to do a really cool, almost like board game. As it felt very, if you've ever played Gloomhaven, that idea of like moving your people into perfect position to do their attacks. I was like, this could be a really fun character if that's what you like. If you like to be able to manipulate the battlefield and, get the best out of your abilities, monks seem to be like the coolest thing to do that with.
No, I totally agree. And feels closer to a rogue than any other class does in that sense. Is that sort of like multiple actions, multiple abilities to do that. It feels like the sorcerer to wizard version of the rogue to monk, if you know what I mean.
Because I think so. Yeah.
This is much more about managing a pool of points, like just because of the sorcerer points, key points, I guess, really. But it's about the way that you maintain and manage your levels of that. And also, like a sorcerer, it's replaced at short and long rest. So it becomes a very much more constantly affecting thing, rather than like a rogue or like a wizard, where it's definitely a day by day sort of thing, and things you do are consistent and constant in a kind of way. I'm not going to say rogues are like wizards, but I'm saying that in any way. But I think monks are very much like sorcerers, like the martial sorcerer. Yeah,
with monks as well, because that means that every single turn you have a wealth of options open to you, and it depends on that like you said, spending those points sort of like your resources. So you can really maximize it, or you can be like, okay, so the situation's changed a little bit, so you are very adaptable.
You're right about the battle map, and it's like being a bit more of a battle master, like, because when you're a sorcerer, making the decision between a quicken spell or a twin spell or embolden spell is kind of like
subtle, all that sort of thing,
is particular to the environment you're in and judging what you're going on. Like twin, well, I can hit 2 people. That means I could be helping my friend and attacking the one I'm attacking right now. Or do I just go for empowering the spell on this one, focus on this, you know, and
Yeah.
so you're constantly, and the same with the monk. It's like, do I go for my flurry of blows now? Do I save the key point because actually they're probably nearly down, so I can probably get them next round? You know, it's those sort of things you're having to take with you when you're playing.
Yeah, and certainly we'll go through like the key point stances that you can get as well, and obviously depending on what subclass you get, specific ones as well. But because there'll be sometimes like the one I always remember from Critical Role is the stunning strike, which it fails, and then you can be like, oh, but I can spend another key point and try it again with the next attack. And so again, it's that every single time you do something in combat, you are listening to what's happening around and then adapting to it. And I just think it's such a good way to learn combat in general, or learning how the game works, because then you're always constantly analyzing what's coming through. Obviously, not every class is for everyone, but for me now, I don't know if I would attempt this my first particular playing of D&D myself, but now I'm like, actually, I bet I could really have fun with this and be able to move around the map. I actually find this quite exciting now that I've come to it.
I totally agree with that. As a first-time player, I would be put off by the managing of something like key points. Again, it's a good way of pointing as well. Like looking at now, I'm much more excited about wanting to play a monk because I don't think I can understand the game much better than 6 years ago when I've got my actual PHB out. I was telling Fiona today, the actual book one. You know, when I got this book in 2017, I was definitely not ready to play a monk.
I was not ready.
Someone in our group was going to play a monk. They pulled out, actually, in that first game. They pulled out before we even got to the table, but they were going to be a monk, so I never even got to see it played then. I had someone play in Dragon's Duel, and because we've had everything. They were quite good. And obviously, you mentioned Bo, so seeing them play. There was a good one in Dimension 20 that I was watching.
Yes.
There's a monk as well, which Cumulus is a monk.
Crown of Candy, yeah. Oh, Cumulus is a great character. Zach is great. So one thing I wanted just to quickly talk about is, because obviously we're looking at as we sort of discussed, the monk class and the subclasses before 1D&D sort of comes in this year. So the one thing I do want to say right at the top, because it's something I didn't realize, because I've not really looked at the most recent UA, etc. So there is a possibility that the key points, the word, is going to be a name change to something called spirit points instead, to sort of reflect, to be more inclusive of other martial art traditions around the world, and not just as particular subset, and also trying to get away, because I will admit some of the writing around this could be seen as very stereotypical, obviously very trope, because it's trying to emulate sort of certain fighting styles, but as a result it then sort of goes, it's definitely this, it's definitely that, and obviously there's so many different traditions around the world that uses martial arts, so it's just trying to be like, key points, we're going to maybe do away with it and have a name change. So I just wanted to bring that up right at the top to say they are thinking about it.
You can flavor it as any trained physical martial attack. It's not like, it doesn't have to be martial arts. It could just be like, you know, you could use this as a boxer. This could be just, it doesn't have to be flavored in the way that, as you say, it is very much flavored with a overview over the back of all of it. But yeah, you could just be boxer. You could be a wrestler. It could be any of those sorts of, I'm looking for unarmed combat. Sorry, that's what I was looking for.
So just to describe what we mean when we talk about the word key, is essentially it is an element of magic that suffuses through the multiverse, specifically through living bodies. And the thing is, though, like, yes, we could, that idea of like we're all connected in some way. It's less magical weave stuff, but you can see where, you know, people's hearts are beating, all that sort of thing. It's that sort of where you focus in and really take that energy yourself.
Yeah, it's playing off the chakra, chi, sort of like chakra points. You see the diagram of the chakra points in the body.
Yeah, all the different body. Yeah, exactly. And basically, monks will train themselves to harness this power within themselves to create these magical effects and exceed their own body's physical capabilities. Some of their attacks can also then harder the flow in other opponents as well. So it feels like, again, you could do a hit, and whilst maybe we don't see anything particular, as soon as somebody lands and then stops, then they could just keel over because you've managed to hit them in a certain like pressure point, essentially. Again, I very much appreciate that. It's not necessarily blood and guts and split it. You know, it's not like that kind of gore. It could just be very simple, like just hard hits, done, simple, clean.
Five-finger death punch.
Yes, five-finger death punch from Kill Bill definitely comes up when I think about this as well. The stuff around monks and like, well, what is it to be a monk? And it talks about obviously that there's these traditions, these monasteries, etc., where you could be left either as an orphan, or maybe you're given to the monastery to go through and follow these traditions, etc. And then there's this talk about like whether or not, do they shun civilization? Do they practice, or are they a part of civilization? Do they help? Because it's not about material wealth for them. It's about training and learning. And it almost has these philosophical thoughts around it. So it made me think, again, we talked about it in Planescape, that these factions have a philosophical goal or have a policy that they adhere to. Same with paladins, their tenets of their orders, this is what they follow through. And I think that's one thing I would have really loved with all these subclasses. It does a little bit of description of like what they're about and what they follow, etc. But I think I would have loved to have a little like description of each monastery sort of like traditions, like what is our philosophy, what do we look for when we're training. It talks about like what it looks like and what their actions are, but I think it would just be nice to really go like, again, like I'm thinking of like the paladins, like tenets of like honor, justice, etc., just to have that emboldened
for each of the different ways, you mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's an interesting point, actually. It does give you some sort of tenets, doesn't it? Like with the mercy one that we're not going to look at today, but it just says it does give you what it's about. I think, it's like D&D as well. It's like sometimes it's about you could create those yourselves, because I've now been thinking just briefly like making a Friar Tuck type character who's like cool. A boxer.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like this kind of
like frying pan out and
frying pan and smacking people. Yeah, I don't know. It just kind of seems funny. I don't know what they would be, but
to be from that sort of tradition where you have a very structured, like this is your schedule, this is what you're all part of a unit per se. So then why do you have a monk leaving to become an adventurer?
Yeah.
And again, it gives you suggestions like, were they exiled, or was it that you're going part of a mission, etc.?
I think you can also just suggest there the other option, which is that there is no monastic tradition here. I think you can take all of that away from this if you want to. I think that's the thing. Like, I think it's worth mentioning is that like you can choose any of these ways. Doesn't mean you actually necessarily have to have all that flavor added into the character, because that it can still work without it. It's just it's a baseline for it, and maybe that's what they'll do when they move forward, just to break down a bit of those abstractions. And that's why you could be a part of a group like a ranger. Like, it's always that question of like, why is the ranger here? Like, it reads it like, I'm a lone wolf, I don't like people, I don't like civilization. And you're like, yeah, but you're in a party, so be nice. And so like with the monk as well, it's just, if you have these things like the 4 elements we're going to talk about, keeping elemental order, maintaining the order of elements could be a very simple one. Or it's just like, you want to do good in the world, and you do that by exacting it in the ways you do. Be that even if you're a way of shadow. Like, I don't know. I want to find out secrets to stop the baddies who are doing all the secrets and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. So you maybe go to more subterfuge ways, but that's the way, the ends justify the means.
Exactly.
That sort of thing. I would also say as well, we talked about it before, like, oops, all bards, oops, all rogues. Same thing. Oops, all monks. You could have so many different kinds of monks.
Yeah, no, we need to do a whole series just called Oops, all X. Yeah, I'd so love to do that as like a series of one shots. Yeah, no, totally, 100% want that. I now want Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, though.
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's have like the teenagers off on their special first mission for the tradition.
Yeah, exactly. All 4 different martial arts, like different, like, well, they've got the different weapons. I like it. Yeah.
So again, when it comes to that backstory, I absolutely agree. You could just be like, I finished my training, I now go into it. But before, it sort of talks about there is that sort of a like isolationist theme that could be a part of it, that you're a bit more distant from the community, so maybe you don't have those connections like to your backstory. You don't have parents, or you don't have guardians, etc. But it's talking about like, what is your connection to this faith or to this tradition? Why is it important to you? And that again, it's that sort of giving something to the GM to bring back into the story at some point, so you're not just like, I'm a separate person and I don't connect to anything in this world, if you see what I mean.
The other one is like, you've just reminded me by saying that particular type is reading the Priory of the Orange Tree. One of the key characters, many like one you're getting sort of in first person perspective, Eadaz. They're like a sorcerer from a secret sect that is trying to protect the world. Not going to give too much away, but they've been put into court through subterfuge. Like, king of their country has like said, oh yeah, they from my court, they're going to go to your court, sort of thing, as like a part of ambassadorial connections role thing. But they're not actually an ambassador, but that sort of ambassadorial connection. But really, they're there to be a hidden sorcerer to protect the royals of the country they're in. For the bigger reasons. But it makes me think, like, you could be a monk that's just like, I'm just a rogue. I'm just a roguish character. You don't have to say you're a monk. It could all be hidden, and you play it out to the rest of your party. You're just like, okay, yeah, I'm here to do some shit. Let's, pickpocket our friends. I'm a rogue. But really, you're a monk.
Yeah, you need the context clues, perhaps, and that'll be,
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Just as that could be another way of playing it. Just this, like, that you've been sent out on this mission, it's all secretive, and that's why you're combining. And maybe you do obviously tell your party after a while, but it could be a way in, is another way.
It's always quite fun to be like, oh, what kind of character are you? Even that from us. I'm always a big fan of that. Going, shit. Now we've got this person on our side, or either for or against us, or going for the same goals. So
yeah, that's the thing. It's kind of like the meta game is really hard not to engage with, but I think sometimes you just don't have to say. Maybe that's more interesting.
Less is more.
Yeah.
So looking at a quick build, ideally for monks, you should be putting your dexterity as your highest ability score, followed by wisdom. And the reason for that, I didn't realize this until, again, I was reading the class features, and I know we're going to go into class features, is that the unarmored defense adds dexterity and wisdom together. But if you're not wearing any armor or shield, and I'm like, oh, damn, that's quite a big thing.
Yeah. Well, they have to boost that unarmed strike somehow, and it was either going to be double your dex or add something up. And I think the wisdom works really well with the sort of connotations, but also just the sense of like, the point is you've trained, you are wise. It's not really an intelligence-based thing. It's you can read other people, read their maneuvers. That's kind of perception, etc., is all linked more to wisdom than it is to intelligence. So that feels sort of correct. Like sports intelligence, they call it, don't they? As they always say, there's there was silly articles from the early 2000s like, this footballer is probably the most intelligent person in the world because of their ability to perceive, understand, read, and their brain is working at a different speed to actually most people. And they were looking at like the rate of the brain waves and how they were processing information was so much faster than people like sitting there thinking about maths or something like that. Right. But it's a different type.
Yeah, it's completely different. Yeah,
it's a different type of intelligence, but it it fits with that basis.
I like that. Yeah. It's, depending on the context of where your brain is the most engaged. Gives you the biggest benefit, so to speak.
Exactly.
Like you said, like if you're like, my job is the American football person and I have to read not only the other team, but I have to listen to like my teammates and then what the coach is saying. I had never thought of that before.
And then those subtle things that you pick up, like the way that you feel something move, but you don't know, you can't really digest it, but just by the action of a feeling what else is happening over there, because you can, I imagine, that sort of sense when you become really heightened to your awareness of like the wind blows, the door's opened outside. Do you know what I mean? Like when you know that in your own house, like you can tell where the door's open without seeing the door is open based on, and you probably tell which door it might be based on where the air's moving and that kind of thing. So that it's that sort of, sorry, is that a weird, it was a weird offshoot, but that kind of thing.
No, I think it's interesting because then for me, when we're going, oops, all monks, I'm just like, okay, it's a sports team rather than like barbarians or fighters per se. I'm like, they're absolutely all monks, or it's a mixture of rogues and like
all sports team, like like a basketball team or like a baseball team. I love it. Yeah, no,
I'd even say football. Like, of course, you need the strength to go through, right? But I'm thinking like passing it around and outrunning people. 100%, it'd be monks, really. Like it's getting around people, maneuvering, and then obviously if you hit something, they go down straight away. But
gymnasts, just a bunch of gymnasts or something like that. Yeah.
Well, there you go. There's a few seedlings of one shots going through there. Was there anything that you want to say particularly about like the initial sort of like proficiencies at all? Because I know sometimes you have something to talk about it.
No, I think they all make a lot of sense. Obviously, you don't have proficiencies with any armor because the whole point is to not. Simple weapons, swords seem like a weird, like you get short swords, but really probably going to be using, it's because you're up close and personal. So it's going to be daggers, short swords, more
staffs, etc.
Yeah, exactly. Artisans' tools and a musical instrument. I was like, okay. I guess like there's always that famous art piece of the monks always drawing the lovely scroll in like British monks, British monks. I mean, you sort of
monks. Like when they're writing the books and stuff.
Books, stuff like that being a classic, and then also in Eastern monks with the sort of like creating of mandalas or doing beautiful pieces of art as a way of meditative process, and music being a meditative process. So you can see that in both sides of the East-West coin.
Just to take on what you've just said there, that's so true, because I'm thinking to myself like, okay, being a monk is like a really cool fighting thing. So you get lots of fighting stuff, but then you're like, but that's like 2D version of them. What is it that we see them at leisure? If they're not fighting or if they're not at work, what do they like? So I think that's a way in, is that the tool stuff is like, what's their hobbies?
But it's also dexterous
with their hands.
It's also like, because it's not only meditative, but it's also maintaining precision.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to be someone who's going to be fighting, you imagine that, you know, playing the guitar gives you, you know, dexterity, or looking like doing drawing. Again, it's just hand-eye coordination. It's all linked, isn't it?
But I hadn't thought of that as a way to be like, and so this is your 2D, like amazing monk, haha. Oh, but they also love flower arranging. And then it just gives you that another way to prompt, like, here's a story, here's them in their downtime. And just a way for you as a player to be like, what else do they do? What, you know, because I always think like, oh, tools, whatever. But actually, if you look at tools going, oh, this is something that they do that isn't necessarily, but it supports their fight a little bit, perhaps, or supports their way of being, but it's actually one separate. So sorry, it's just the way you said it. I was like, oh, I never thought about that.
If there's more on the page, use what's on the page, you know, like make what you're building your character be your character as much as possible. Doesn't mean you have to add in extras as well. But
100%.
Use everything that's there that the character sheet's giving you, because then you're sorted.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Saving throws makes sense. I would have said, why not wisdom? Seems a bit weird.
You do get a lot of them later on.
I know.
I agree. I feel like dexterity and wisdom for saving throws initially seems to make more sense, but yeah, they've got strength and dexterity instead.
Do people only ever get 2?
I think so, yes.
Oh, okay, well, fine. Maybe. I'd take that. And then acrobatics, athletic, history, insight, religion, and stealth. Yeah, I don't know. Insight makes a lot of sense. You could have argued other variations on
I think so.
History, maybe. Could have been swapped out for medicine, maybe, potentially. So you think like you're very much aware of the human body and anatomy.
Yeah.
Potentially that would make sense. Even animal handling, because that's another wisdom-based one that comes to mind. Dependent on, like, you could have a familiar. I know it's not part of it, but like you could have an animal companion. I don't know. Yeah. I'm just thinking.
I agree with you. I feel like, because these are all very like, so you've got 2 very like very strength-based ones in the history and insight and religion and stuff. They're all very much like active, I think, or like, well, I mean, history and religion maybe less so,
but they're very much intelligence ones as well. Whilst wisdom checks,
never really do see medicine that often, do you?
Survival again and medicine. I don't know. These just felt to me. I don't know. History and religion felt very much thematic to the fluff, the extra stuff, which is great for if you're sticking with that tradition. But I would say as a DM, like if you're going to go away from that sort of traditional role they've put in the book, I'd be happy for you to take medicine. Or
I think so.
Animal handling, or even I don't know. You could even take Constitution as an additional one, or Wisdom as an additional proficiency
for saving throws. Yeah,
it's saving throws. Sorry, in lieu of a proficiency.
I'd be interesting to do that. Start with less skill proficiencies, but more saving throw proficiencies.
Yeah, I just think the monk, as we said earlier, is so open-ended how it could be manipulated into your own character.
Yeah.
That I think as a GM, you should come to that proficiencies as a very flexible thing. The acrobatics, athletics, stealth, and insight seem pretty standard, but you could argue your way out of any of them, I think. I think survival's another good one. You're like, you've got a whole journey as you're like a hermit, as it says, to choose as the focus for the background. But whatever, if you're going for that whole like traveling solo person before you became in part of an adventuring group, survival makes a lot of sense as a skill, doesn't it? But I mean, you might get that from the background as well.
Obviously, if you get it in the background, if you don't have it already, but then I'm always like, well, you get double proficiency.
That's what I mean, yeah.
You know, so I think because currently, as far as I'm aware, like in the things that have double proficiency usually is bards or rogues, etc., because of the expertise. Stuff.
But this feels like an expertise martial. It feels like a very mix between the martial classes and the expertise classes, I think, because well, like a rogue is. Rogue is a martial expert. Ranger's basically a martial expert as well. It's they just get a bit of spells.
And then just equipment in general, you either start with a short sword or any simple weapon. Exactly what you said. You're up close and personal. You're not unlikely to be doing anything from rage per se. You do have 10 darts to start with as well.
Yeah, but I'm now thinking of just bloke with a pint going,
darts team.
Darts,
I mean, there's the way of the drunken master, isn't it? So
way of the drunken master darts team.
All darts team. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh no, because the names are so good. Because that's the whole thing.
We had that thing in the UK recently with that 16-year-old darts player getting all the way to final.
Fiona, this is it. It's a 4 darts team, all got to have amazing names with the nicknames Bill Jobs, the Works, Bill the Works Jobs. You know what I mean? That's what it's like.
Again, just from my biases stuff, I'm like, okay, monks, they look a certain way, they probably have flowing robes, and then we've gone, okay, it's a darts team, and then that's a whole other image that you're putting, and you're like, together they are monks.
Oops, all monks. And it's like, I love it. And they're doing their darts tournament and it all gets taken down by dragons and they're having to like...
a dragon done.
And how many hit points it got?
Oh my God, yeah,
180! Exactly. Yes. That's it. You'd have to make it so you're like level 20 so you could do 180 damage. Like that is...
We have to do this now. That is amazing. Oh my God. I think we've done it.
Maybe, Fiona, everyone has to have a dartboard and has to like throw darts to get to... Because there's 20. There's 20
my God, there's 20.
on the dartboard.
So you could use the darts and that's your attack.
That's your roll.
We're literally having a brain exploding moment, guys.
Oh my gosh. This is like... Okay, it's a live show at the... What's it called? What's the place called?
Not Flying Darts. I know what you mean. The place in London, the chain place.
Yes. There's one near me. It does darts.
Flight Club.
So we book out Flight Club.
Right.
Get permission to record.
Yep.
All right. It's my turn to attack. Throw the dart. It's a 2. Right. And then maybe you do the darts, the 3 darts for your damage.
Yeah. So you do the first one is to hit, and then the other 2 is to do the... Yeah. And then obviously depending on where you are for those damage ones, it indicates like if you get a 4, but it's in the top, it's like 3d4 or whatever.
Yes.
Wow. I was going to say, like, I can imagine you having a go at practicing darts if you were in person, but now I'm like, we've just rechanged this whole bloody game now.
Oops, all monks, the live show darts. You didn't think it was going to happen, but here we are.
I did not think I'd be sitting here with you talking about darts today. Let's get started with the class features before we get running away with this one-shot idea that you've got going on. We talked about it earlier, this unarmored defense that you get at level 1. So that's where your AC equals 10 plus your dexterity and your wisdom if you're not wearing any armor and not wielding a shield. So that's very, very important. Yeah, again, it could be quite high already, but it's about later on. The only way you can really change that is obviously if you're using those ability score improvements.
It's going to be what? You could have +3 in both, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think up to, possibly 15 at the top.
3 and +2, maybe.
Yeah, I think 15 at level 1, that's still pretty decent as a...
I remember Bo got some bracers, didn't she?
Yeah, you get braces of like defense and stuff like that.
And that doesn't count as armor?
No, I think it's a magical item. I think, magical items that come up.
Like rings and stuff like that. And
that's what I was thinking, rings, etc.
Headbands, what they're called, like...
Circlets,
that's what I was thinking about, headband.
I think you also do get headbands as well, but circlet sounds more fantasy.
It sounds more fancy than headband. Scrunchy. The scrunchy of power.
The scrunchy of defense. Because your hair's not in your eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
Plus free to vision.
The scrunchy of perception. I love how you could then, the antithesis of that is the bangs of darkness. I cast bangs of darkness. Bangs grow. No!
I take an action to cut my bangs. Do a performance check. Oh.
You've got a Deschanel fringe.
You're going to have like a disadvantage on any persuasion check because people are just going to look at your bangs as a result.
Deschanel fringe of disadvantage.
Also at level 1 you get martial arts, so this is where you master some combat styles.
Martial darts.
Sorry,
it's coming. It's going to happen the whole way.
It's going to happen all the way through. So basically, it's short swords or any simple melee weapons that aren't two-handed or heavy-handed, and you get the following benefits. In a sense, you could use dexterity instead of strength when you're doing your attack and damage rolls, which makes sense because obviously your dexterity will be quite high. You get to roll a d4 in place of normal damage of your unarmed strike. So normally, your unarmed strike is usually your strength.
Yeah.
Your strength modifier. But now you can roll a d4 and you're like, okay, that's variable, but that means when you're going higher and higher up.
And it gets up to D10, doesn't it?
It gets up quite high. And I weirdly had forgotten that you have something called the martial die for this. I completely missed that out. So I might have been, in that one shot I did, I think I might have been just using D4s constantly for my extra punches and just doing like little taps here and there. So I missed out on that. So I'd keep an eye on that myself just to remember that. But then also, when you use the attack action to do an unarmed strike or your monk weapon, you can do another one for your bonus action. And that's before you use key points. So that's the other thing as well. Obviously, we'll talk about key points.
You get 2 hits, basically.
Yeah, if you use a key point to do like flurry of blows, you can get 2. But even if you don't, you can still do another one for the bonus action as well. So I thought, pretty good on that front.
By the way, I've just seen Unarmed Strikes and thought of the sequel, Bowling Team.
Oh my God, we have to write this down. This is your Kickstarter.
We don't need to write it down. It's literally, it's in here. It's written. It's vocalized.
We've got to get it out on Kickstarter
team.
straight away. Yeah. And whoever doesn't want to be a part of the monk team, by the way, who, yeah, if they're like, oh, I want to be, I don't know, a bard, or I want to be a fighter who's not as good as the others for whatever reason. Mascot. They're the ones in the costume. Like maybe they get pulled out and they have to play at some point, but definite difference. Oh, I mean, saying that, the mascots with the monks inside them could also be pretty good.
When you level up, you get the little slide thing, and then when you get to level 10, they put the sidings up for you. You know
yeah, for the bowling.
10, at level 15, you get the little rolls it for you ball thing.
It rolls it down. Oh. Yeah. So then at level 2, we get our key points, which we start off with. Your level determines how many points you have, as it's shown in the column, etc. And when you start at level 2, 3 sort of features. You get the flurry of blows, patient defense, and step of the wind. When you spend a key point, it's gone. It's basically a part of your pool, and you get them back on a short and long rest, which again, I was like, oh, I think I only did them on long rests last time. So that was me learning that as well. But it does say you must spend at least 30 minutes of rest meditating to regain your key points. And I was like, I don't know if I would be like, so, what are you reflecting on? I think I'll just, I wouldn't have that requirement per se, because everyone else is doing short rest or long rest. I assume it's fine,
Patient defense, then you spend 1 key point to take the dodge action as a bonus action. So you basically get to be a rogue. Step of the wind. Spend 1 key point to take the disengage or dash action as bonus action. So yeah, it's just, as I said, it gives you that.
Yeah.
And your jump distance is double for the turn.
Again, that'd be quite exciting to do that. Step of the wind, and then doing your various sort of like total wipeout, but you're absolutely acing all of these challenges.
Oh yeah, they'd be great at total wipeout.
So yeah, essentially that is cunning action with this key point spending just for the monk rather than the rogue.
Then second level, unarmed movement, which is just your speed increases by 10 feet while you're not wearing armor or wearing a shield. Its bonus increases when you reach certain monk levels, so you get super fast. And then when you're at 9th level, you get vertical surfaces and across liquids on your turn without falling during the move.
So cool.
Which is just so... I'm seeing so many like amazing bits of Naruto where they run across water.
Arms
that
back.
Fight scene between Jiraiya and Pain, which is in the land of water, and it's all on water, and it's just that. And the little, like, you hear that little, the sound effects. So it's the best fight ever in an anime. Personally, for me, that fight, those 2 fights with the Pain, but that one, just visually, there's some amazing, so good. Anyway.
But that's cool, because I was like, what would I do as a touchstone to show how I would move across? And so that looks very cool, right? I was thinking of those lizards that run across the water. That look like,
the ones that like,
they're like, moving their arms about. That's how I imagine it would be like.
I mean, maybe that's when our
Oops, all swimmers or something. I don't know.
I'm just now thinking from Flight Club. You could just imagine them running across down the Thames, just across the Thames.
Oh, of course, yeah. Oh, gotta get there to Fight Club.
Yeah.
Level 3, that's when we get our subclasses, which we'll come back to. And again, that happens. We get features at 6th, 11th, and 17th level as well. Deflect missiles, which I think most people will be aware of. It's such a cool. Again, I'm like, I forgot about this. This is really cool. So using your reaction to deflect or catch a missile that's been hit at you. Very important, this ranged weapon attack. So you think, anything that has the word missile in it, I catch magic missile. That doesn't happen, unfortunately. That automatically hits. So you probably put your hand out and it just hits into your hand and you'd still take the damage. You don't have time to grab it.
You just get to look freaking cool, like grab it. You get to grab it. You get to grab the magic missile, but it just explodes in your hand. But it's still cool. Okay.
You maybe walk it off a little bit. As you catch it in your hand. You reduce the damage that you're taking by 1d10 plus your dexterity modifier plus your monk level. So again, that's going to stack quite quickly. And then if you catch it, if you reduce that damage to 0 and it's small enough, you can spend a key point to just throw it back at them, which is great. I love that. The only thing I wondered is that if you were a creature that was large, for example, and so catching in your hand, say, I don't know, a cannonball.
Yeah.
And then you just, I think I would just have that rule that, you can do it. If you're a just large creature.
It, aren't you then?
Yeah, proper neoing with the bullets. Yeah, absolutely.
Look at it. You can just drop it like he does, or you can throw it back if you want.
There is obviously a range on it, so 20 feet and long range 60 feet. But I still like the idea of going, just throwing a cannonball, just like
it makes you want to be just like the monk that never engages in combat and just runs around in circles, catching shit. They're trying to get them. Catching, throwing it back, catching, throwing it back.
It's the ultimate frisbee team. That's Sorry, I'm just thinking of all the sports now.
Dodgeball.
A dodgeball, yeah, anything like that where you just catch, take that damage, and then whoa, throw it back.
Exactly. Ultimate frisbee.
Then we've got obviously ability score improvements. We know about those. Slow fall also at level 4. Using your reaction to reduce any falling damage you take equal to 5 times your monk level, essentially. Which, again, that's pretty good if you're suddenly just falling in there, just to be able to slow yourself down.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And extra attack at 5th level feels about right, same as a lot of other classes get at 5th level. A stunning strike, which you mentioned earlier, which is that you can interfere with the flow of ki in an opponent body, which kind of comes down that idea of the medicine feeling that I had. So when you hit another creature with a melee weapon attack, you can spend 1 ki point to attempt a stunning strike. Target must succeed on a con save or be stunned until the end of your next turn. I just want the darts person hitting it like straight in the point in your body, which like connects to the back of your the
back of the neck,
and the neck where it's like the sleep point, where you press the button and you go to sleep, sort of thing. When they do the sleeper hold, you do that with the dart, and they're just stunned.
But even then, like you play it as like they can't believe you've done this, so they're just incandescent, and they're like.
They're so stunned by the amazement of it.
Level 6, you have a key empowered strike, so that just means your unarmed strikes now count as magical, which is very, very important because obviously it benefits you to be doing more unarmed strikes or simple weapons, etc. So now that you have that, you're not going to have necessarily +1 extra stuff. Your fists, these fists are also weapons, that sort of thing. Evasion, level 7, we've used this before with the rogues. We love it. Idea that you dodge out the way. It's dexterity saving throw to take only half damage. Instead, you take no damage if you succeed, or take half if you fail. Again, it's another little extra thing. And what I love is that all these early ones, they're really like, oh, I can see this being really cool in combat. Like, not today. That sort of like catching things, surviving things, jumping out the way. You're just all over the place. And it's just, really cool. Feels very exciting just even to talk about it,
Yeah, like a rogue. So let's stillness of mind at 7th level. You can use your action to end one effect on yourself that is causing you to be charmed or frightened, which is pretty OP.
At level 7 as well. And it's not like the shitty poisoned condition. It's something that, dragons, fae stuff, they use charm, they use frightened. And so you just be like, no.
And there's not a lot of people that can undo that so easily. So that is
so good. Then we get to level 10. And then it goes, been really cool now. You're the master of ki. You're now immune to disease and poison. Okay.
Yeah, good.
And the answer is nothing.
It's nice to have an immunity, but it'd be like, have a bit more. Can I have something else? You're immune to disease and poison, and you can pull the poison out of your body and reapply it to someone else.
And throw it as a missile towards someone else. I think maybe immunity to maybe the poison condition or maybe maybe even like the grapple condition. I don't know.
I would say you now get proficiency in Constitution saving throws. Yeah. That's when you get it.
Oh, you know what? That makes so much more sense, actually.
Yeah, proficiency in Constitution saving throws would be, I think that would be the next thing.
Yeah. Tongue of the Sun and Moon. Ooh, how exciting. At level 13, you learn to touch the key of other minds. You understand all spoken languages. Okay. Any creature that can understand the language can also understand what you're saying. You're like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, nice little flavour.
But you probably have either items or someone in the party that can cast telepathy or comprehend languages, which is quite a low-level spell.
Just means since 7th level, where you just got really cool, you can stop being charmed or frightened, you've then just got a lot of levels
where your key's going up, your hit things going up,
but you're not getting anything more to play with. You're just getting more flavoural stuff,
which you could always get in role play anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you're going to be in lands you probably explore. You're at the sort of third, from second to third, sort of like, oh, we're now being well-known adventurers. You're probably going to be in lands where people can speak different languages or connect to you with like other people can do it, not just you. So I don't know.
And it makes sense that the next one, Diamond Soul 14, Master of Key Points give you proficiency in all saving throws. Nice. Fantastic. Which is a bit more jack of all trades kind of like thing. The fact that they're going to do that, why not just give you one extra one at 10th level to boost it up?
Yeah, and that you could choose which one it is, perhaps.
And maybe they give you intelligence at 13th, like to go with the understand all spoken languages. Yeah. You also gain proficiency with more intelligence, so you get double proficiency to intelligence things, investigation and understanding of people.
Or insight, perhaps, And then with the Diamond Soul at 14th level as well, when you make a saving throw and fail, you can spend 1 key point to re-roll it. So you're basically looking yourself. So again, if you had a feat of luck and those are the killers for me, is saving throws when you're like, this matters. So I love being able to spend my resource on re-rolling saving throws like that. Really like that.
Then you got Timeless Body again. You 15th. So we've already had purity of body, and then you get timeless body, which is like you don't age. You can't be aged magically. You can still die of old age, however. In addition, you no longer need food or water.
This is something I think the druid had as well at some point, and we're all a bit like, makes sense, I guess, because you've mastered your whole body, but it's like...
It's just green.
Yeah, it's like, I'm just eating vegetables constantly.
No, you're photosynthesizing.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Another flavor, which is great. Totally makes sense, but I think please give people more. Like, don't be so mean.
Maybe this is me being silly now, but like if you had like splitting up in terms of levels, so like say 1 to 5, here are some things that might happen to monks at 1 to 5. And then when you get later on, so say between 15 to 20, you're like, okay, you are in the peak of your condition now. So monks here don't age. They don't, and it's a flavor stuff. And here are the features you get, and it's more the mechanics of. So I think you need like a little bit of like text saying like what kinds of monks we expect to be at this level, and what maybe role play stuff. And then here's the mechanics that you can get.
I'm trying to think like what you could take for the age one, like the body one, but maybe again it's like
well, you can't be magically aged.
You can use your constitution bonus now additionally to your wisdom and dexterity when you're using your fight. So all, you know, when it says you use your dex and wisdom for your AC, you can now use your constitution additionally for your AC, because that makes sense. Because like your body is now a timeless body, so like you can't get hit if they get past your wisdomous, your perception, you don't see it, your dexterity to get out the way quick enough. If it just still hits you, you're just
the body is still
your body's just like what you know,
it's like oh ow, or even just when you're healing stuff, you plus your con modifier, like because your body is quicker to heal itself because it's not as fragile.
Or you can double all heals. You heal doubly.
Yeah.
Great. That should be like 20th level feature. We're going to get to 20th level. We're all going to be very disappointed, everyone. I hate to break it to you.
This is spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, but you weren't that surprised.
Then at level 18, you get another key feature called empty body. They're all very thematic, like, you know, timeless body, diamond soul, all that sort of thing. You can use your action to spend 4 key points to become invisible for a minute. I think that's pretty epic. Again, might be nice to have that a little bit earlier, just so you can sneak around and then have that first sort of drop of a surprise round, perhaps. During that time, as you're invisible, you have resistance to all damage but force damage. Again, that's pretty good. So even if you see you, you're still going to halve that damage. And even if it's like a fireball, you've got that evasion as well. So you just properly like taking down as little damage as possible as you're invisible. And then you can spend 8 key points as well to cast astral projection, which again, very thematic, that you could go into the sort of the astral realm. You can't take anyone else with you. Totally fine. That to me kind of makes sense.
Yeah, but it's like, okay, cool. They're focusing very much on the flavor part of it, of like, oh, you're a monk, so you astrally project. But it's like, yeah, okay. It feels very outdated.
It's a cool thing, but then you're like, well, what else could we do with this?
I could get into the astral plane. Cool. What can you do there? Can you find a tree so I could do what?
Can we tree strike or something? Yeah.
I don't know, but you can't. I don't think you can do that between planes. So like,
no. I wonder if you would replace it with a more combat useful spell, because it's something like I would use in combat per se.
How about this? You at this point you can use your key points to heal yourself higher. Or you can use a key point to cast up to a 5th level spell on the sorcery table. You're basically a sorcerer now. Or you can druid. You can choose from the druid or sorcerer table a number of spells up to level 5, and you can use a number of key points to cast them equal to the level.
Yeah. I think that makes sense because, that idea of sorcerer, and druid is coming from you. The key energy is coming from you. So, I like that. And then it could give some suggestions of what kind of spells they could be. Because, I could imagine then going, okay, let me write down some spells that this will be really cool to do.
It feels completely fine to like, you talking about it's all based on a magical inner ability. So why can't you manifest that as magic externally? Yeah, I still think more spell abilities like Flaming Fists. You know, or like Green Flame Blade you can apply onto your hands.
Oh my god, that would be so cool. You punch someone with Green Flame Blade and the fire then spreads not to that person but also to the person behind them.
Exactly, yeah.
Uppercuts, absolutely.
Yeah, totally. Like all those sorts of things. Like, give us some magic.
These fists are also weapons.
Exactly, yeah.
And then level 20, the perfect self.
Oh, this is perfect. This is the ultimate one, Fiona.
Yeah, it can't wait, right? So when you roll for initiative and you have no key points remaining, you regain 4
of the total 20 you have at that level. Yep.
And then you could easily then just spend those 4 to become invisible and then leave the fight.
So if you don't have none, your 20th level purpose is
Rubbish.
a waste of everyone's freaking time.
I think every time you start a fight, you regain any lost key points.
Baseline, I'd say you are one with yourself. You use, for your AC, you now use all your stat blocks added together to make your AC.
Modifiers.
So your modifiers all create your AC.
Yeah.
All of them. So one with your own body that you can use your intelligence, your wisdom, your charisma to manipulate yourself and the battlefield around you and the people that you're playing with. Like, even you can use your charisma. You're giving them back chat and stuff like that.
You're giving the one-liners.
Exactly. You're using all of that. That gives you a super AC.
That's true. That'd be cool.
You don't have to spend key points to do dash actions or any of the cunning actions. So you can choose. That's just an additional bonus action. You get cunning actions basically for free. No key points changed.
I wonder if you just go, I have legendary actions as a monk. Like I could just do a turn whenever because I'm so at one moment. I can see the threads, you know.
Yeah, you do not have an initiative. You can take your action anytime and you can take an additional action. It doesn't have to be at the same moment. You can take an action now. You can take an action later.
You have the order of initiative. You have 2 turns.
You always have first initiative. You always are top.
You always go first no matter what because you are so quick. So that first initial sort of first 10 levels, all the first 7 levels really, you're like, oh, there's lots of stuff. And then you're like, okay, we're at the end. Phew. Yeah. But yeah, as a quick look, I'm like, oh, I get very excited because I'm like, I could definitely see, again, if we were doing this in person, if we had a VTT, I'd be like, all right, hold my drink and go from there. I feel excited about it. I feel excited to then think about the environment because normally I'm the person who doesn't really think about where I'm going or what I'm doing. Here I'm like, ooh, but I can run up walls now. So I can get to the top and then I could just jump from the top and then smash into someone like Drunken Master way or something like that and then pin them to the ground and then, I could just do other things. And it just makes you think about outside of the box of typical, I run up, I slash, with my sword.
It's definitely a whole completely different way of playing the game, isn't it? So, it's really exciting. Then we've got some optional class features, which I'm assuming have come from Tasha's. So dedicated weapons. You train yourself to use a variety of weapons as monk weapons, not just simple melee weapons and short swords. So when you finish a short long rest, you can touch one weapon, focus your ki onto it, and then count that weapon as a monk weapon as you'll use a feature again. Chosen weapon must meet these criteria. The weapon must be simple or martial. You must be proficient with it. It must lack the heavy and special properties. So you can take a rapier.
I think it's good because then, again, this sort of thing means that you're not just going, oh, I've only got a short sword, and it's not just, you can expand out the list a little bit because there's quite a few simple melee weapons that you can choose from as a result. It's not melee. You could have a bow.
That's true.
Before you had to be up and close, and now you can be further away. And so, instantly it opens it up so that you're not constantly in melee, which is a nice option to have, actually.
Yeah, I'm saying. Then you get a key fueled attack. So at 3rd level, you can spend 1 key point or more as part of your action to make an attack with an armed strike or a monk weapon as a bonus action before the end of the turn.
So that just is adding that you're using your monk weapon. It's not the unarmed strike that you would do before. So before it just said you could use your bonus action or spend a key point. You do your unarmed strike, but you couldn't do it with.
It just changed it to that. That was it.
Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah, no, that's what I thought as well.
Quickened healing, which is something that I talked about. There's no healing thing. Spend 2 key points to roll a martial arts die, and you regain a number of hit points equal to the number rolled plus your proficiency bonus.
I like that.
I just don't know why there isn't a lot of healing stuff. I know there is in some of the other ones, but in the base, as you said, when you're you don't age. You should just regain hit points at the end of your turn. That would be a good one. That's a good high level one. You regain your level plus, or you roll a certain dice at each level, and you get to regain that. You're just regaining health. So many monsters do that, don't they? Regenerate.
You're using that key energy. You're using the energy within your body, and you're channeling it into certain areas. So it totally makes sense. You're like, okay, I need to strengthen yourself just for the next fight. It's like temporary hit points. Maybe it's temporary hit points rather than actual hit points because you just you have to brace yourself for the next impact. Yeah.
So once the fight's over, then you have to then actually properly heal up. But during the fight, you can gain the temporary hit points, and they last until
maybe it's temporary hit points, and then as soon as the combat ends, you drop those temporary hit points.
So maybe if you hit more than half your hit points in use, then you take a level of exhaustion after the fight or something. You could do that
because you're like, ooh, absolutely. But I do like the quickened healing. I would definitely encourage that because I know these are all optional. So I'd be like, yeah, take that for your level 4 option along with the one that you get as well.
And then focused aim, 5th level. When you miss with an attack roll, you can spend 1 to 3 kit points to increase your attack roll by 2 for each of these key points you spent, potentially turning the miss into a hit. So that's kind of cool. So you're like,
I love that.
You roll and you're like, I got an 18. That doesn't hit. I know it's like at least 20. Yeah, let's do it.
I'll spend that. Yeah, because it's always like, yes, spending stuff. It's like the same with spell slots. It's like, good, spend your spell slots on this because, it's a rapidly diminishing pool that you won't get back until a short rest after the fight. There's no way to regain them within the fight. There's no potion. There's no anything like that. So I was like, oh, I like that. So those are the optional features. There's not many of them, and they're all lower levels.
Yeah, because that's the only things to option.
All right, so let's then dive into the 3 classes that we get with the player's handbooks. The Way of the Open Hand, the Way of Shadow, and the Way of the 4 Elements. Not in alphabetical order.
No, I don't know why.
So let's start with the open hand. If we wanted to take the subclass of the open hand, what are we looking at, Hamilton?
It's the more traditional idea of a martial artist, isn't it? It's the ultimate masters of martial arts combat, whether armed or unarmed. They learn techniques to push and trip their opponents, manipulate ki to heal damage to their bodies, and practice advanced meditation that can protect them from harm. So this is definitely much more what we were talking about. Like, you get effects that help you be better at fighting and better at healing yourself and looking after yourself, in a sense. So you start off with 3rd level, the open hand technique. You can manipulate your enemy's ki when you harness your own. Whenever you hit a creature with one of the attacks granted by your flurry of blows, you can impose one of the following effects. It must succeed in a dex save or be knocked prone. It must make a strength save, or it can be pushed up to 15 feet away from you. It can't take reactions until the end of your next turn.
Which is pretty good, because you can imagine if you hit it and you go, you can't take reactions, and then you leave. You don't take those opportunity attacks.
Right.
People can go in, hit, and leave, and it can't take an opportunity attack. So that's pretty powerful at level 3, I thought.
You have to hit a creature with one of your attacks granted by your flurry of blows. So you have to use a key point.
You have to do to do that.
So you'd be using a key point to disengage, but at least in this, you can not just disengage, you can hit and then just run away.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
True.
So it's like you get 2 hits and still get to run away. So it kind of bonuses that up.
I love that one.
What do you get next then, Fiona?
You get something called wholeness of body. So this is what we talked about, that healing stuff. So at level 6, you gain the ability to heal yourself. As an action, you can regain hit points equal to 3 times your monk level, but you can only do it once per long rest, essentially. I think that's pretty sweet, actually. So what's that? You start off, that's 18 hit points at level 6, and then it's just going to get higher and higher. So that's, as an action, you just go 1 second, and then you're like, okay, lock and load it and do it again. As an action, I think that's great. I think that's quite a significant heal that you would get. You won't even get that with like lesser healing potions. Like even cure wounds, like unless you pump in a level to it, like it doesn't guarantee you like double. So I think that's pretty. I think that's pretty great.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And 60 at level 20 is pretty good.
Pretty good.
Just as an action, be like, ooh, yep, I'm ready.
Yeah, the eyes are glowing white. Then you get level 11 is tranquility. So you enter a special meditation that surrounds you with an aura of peace. At the end of a long rest, you gain the effects of the sanctuary spell, which lasts to the end of your long rest. So this is basically, people have to do a sort of wisdom saving for, I think, to hit you. And if they fail it, they have to hit someone else, essentially. They can't attack you. It's a bit like the invisibility spell. As soon as someone hits you or you attack someone, it's broken, essentially. You could be at the front of combat and somebody like leaps to surprise you, and then they can't hit you because you're so serene and so peaceful because they fail their throw, and they have to either lose their attacker or hit someone else. So they might have to hit their buddy instead, as they're like, God darn it, bloody monks.
Just like that sort of stop in the middle of the fight. I like this in our darts one, right? I'm thinking it's you stop, take a sip of the beer.
Yeah.
In the middle of the fight, and they're like, what? And they go to punch you. And you just like move out of the way as you're like drinking the beer, and it just goes, woo.
My pint. Yeah, exactly.
Pint.
So what's the final one that we get?
Quivering Palm. At 17th level, you gain the ability to set up lethal vibrations in someone's body when you hit a creature. This is your 5-finger death punch, basically.
So good.
You hit a creature with an unarmed strike, you can spend 3 key points to start these imperceptible vibrations, which last for a number of days equal to your monk level. The vibrations are harmless, and if you use your action to end them, to do so, you or the target must be on the same plane of existence. When you use this action, the creature must make a con save throw. If it fails, it is reduced to 0 hit points. If it succeeds, it takes 10d10 necrotic damage. You can have only one creature under the effect of this feature at a time. You can choose the end of vibrations harmlessly without using an action.
How cool is that? At any time, you're just like,
that's a level 20 action. Like, that's what you should be getting at level 20.
2 and a bit weeks later, you're just there at home with your family and you go, God, my heart.
Yeah.
And it just explodes and then you're dead because someone gone, oh, shoot. They just click their fingers and then that person's dead. Yeah, I really love that. And just the amount of damage on 10d10 is just, oh, yeah. It's such a cool flavor. So, like, and also, like, just I could just see it being evocative. Like, you punch and then you like, okay.
But you'd be doing that every go against Vecna, wouldn't you? You'd be like, 3 key points.
Yes, keep spending those 3 key points just in case.
And I know it has to fail saving throw, so you can legendary resist.
But then if a whole team of you are just pummeling this creatures.
If it succeeds, you still take 10d10.
That's a lot, isn't it?
So even if they don't get dropped to 0, Vecna, bosh, 10d10. 4 of you, 4 darts players, frickin' quivering palm.
hands. It's like the darts.
The quivering dart. 40d10, please, Vecna.
So yeah, the way they open hand, I actually really love.
Yeah.
We'll go into the other 2 obviously in a second, but I feel like if people just starting out as the monk and they're like, I don't know, I just do that one. I think that's just an easy one just to get going, and then obviously later if you want to change to another one, that's absolutely fine. But I just think it has everything in that you need, and I think it's a really good complement to the main class features.
Now, I think the Shadow one's fucking cool.
Oh,
it's really fucking cool. So the one monk that we had actually in my first one shot I did, there was a monk. They were all 8th level, and one of them was a shadow monk. And they did this, and I didn't read this, and it completely fucked up one of my things, which is they could get across the room. So like, how big's the gap? Well, it's about 30 feet. Is it dark on both sides? So it's like, yeah. It's like, well, I just teleport. I was like,
I just step into the shadows and appear on the other side.
I was like, ow. And they could just go get the key, and I was like, well, all right, well, that's that one done.
Yeah.
Fuck it. I was like, bugger.
The way of the shadow follows a tradition that values stealth and subterfuge. They might be called ninjas or shadow dancers. What a great word shadow dancers is, by the way. And they serve as spies and assassins. Regardless of their methods, they sort of expect unquestioning loyalties from their students. So the idea that everyone is incredibly focused to get to the end of the mission and get that information. That idea you said before about spies and intelligence retrieval, they are literally heisting their way into stuff and being as quiet as possible. These sort of stealthy cats, obviously, like, everything about them. They're very evocative in that sort of sense.
Yeah. It's like the mixture. I don't know if you played Destiny. Did you play Destiny, the game?
I didn't know. It wasn't my club game.
They had 2 things which they had they had one that was shadow focused and one that was like Blade Dancer, and just mixing those 2 together is Blade Dancer was what I played main, and basically what was cool about them is like if you hid, you went invisible, which was really cool, and then they had the super attack where you like fuck people up with blades. It was really cool. It was like the best thing. It just making me think of that, which is really cool.
Absolutely. They start obviously at level 3 with this, and it's using that key. We talked about it before for those level 20 stuff about having keys to duplicate spells effects of some sort. So here it gives you some already. So you can spend 2 key points to cast like darkness, dark vision. You need to give yourself dark vision, which is pretty good. Pass without a trace or silence. So again, these are very much like in the theme of shadows, etc. And you'd obviously do it without material components.
And you get minor illusion as well.
Yeah, as a cantrip. So I love that. I kind of like that. So it goes back to the whole thing of like, spend 2 key points because darkness and pass without a trace. They are level 2 spells and silences as well, I think.
Great.
Someone heard you as we were talking, and then there was like, it's in the way of the shadows. God. Yeah. Then this is what you talked about, shadow steps at level 6. You gain the ability to step from one shadow into another. If you are in dim light or darkness, as a bonus action, it's not even an action, it's a bonus action, you can teleport up to 60 feet away in an unoccupied space that you can see also within dim light. You then have advantage on the first melee attack you make before the end of the turn.
And there's no limit to it, which I'm going to say, that's what I want for anything that gives you Misty Step.
I was going to say, pretty much
should never have a freaking proficiency. You can only do it like 4 times. Misty Step, because they always do it with Misty Step. They're like, you get the ability to do Misty Step, but only a few times. This one, they're like, you can jump through shadows no matter, whatever you fucking like. And you're like,
shadows? Got plenty of them, mate.
It's going to fucking organise, wizards, and sort your life out. This is great. This is what you need to do, because you should be able to do Misty Step. Everyone wants to be Gambit, so Nightcrawler. I keep saying Gambit because of the cards we're talking about.
It's because we were talking about Book of Many Things recently. So yeah. You want to be that Nightcrawler of just jumping in and out of existence, like teleporting.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
At 11th level, Cloak of Shadows. You have learned to become one with the shadows. When you are in an area of dim light or darkness, you can use your action to become invisible. You remain invisible until you make an attack, cast spell, or in an area of bright Light.
You were just like, I'm going to teleport to this shadow and then stay there. Yeah, because that's that shadow step. You just can do it. And then you go, action, invisible. And you're like, I am Batman. I am the shadows.
I am the darkness. It's greater invisibility where you can hit things whilst being invisible, isn't it?
Yes, correct. Yeah. So maybe that will be the thing, is that at later levels, it goes from invisibility to greater invisibility.
Would be a good way to like boost it, wouldn't it? Like once you hit level 20, when you hit 15 or something, or even 10 maybe.
So you get this at 11. So I think, maybe at higher levels of 15 or even 20 would be fucking great as well.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always invisible.
And then opportunist at 17th level, you can exploit a creature's momentary distraction when it is hit by an attack. Whenever a creature within 5 feet of you is hit by an attack made by a creature other than you, you can use reaction to make a melee attack against it yourself.
Pretty good. So yeah, if you got your rogue that's gone up and done a sneak attack, and the person's like, and you're like, it's hit. It's like on all the sides. Yeah. I think obviously for this one, the Way of the Shadow, it is the movement and being invisible. Like the key point thing for spells, great early on to just be like darkness. So that's the thing as well. You could use your key points. That's the action. You can create darkness or pass without a trace and silence, all that sort of is. Silence them, and then on your next turn, action, or teleport, action, invisible, all that sort of thing. So you can really stack up where you're going, and then. Oh yeah, so they could you could be next to someone invisible, and somebody with a range, like your ranger just shoots with a bow, hits them, and then you're like, and I'll also hit as well. So it doesn't matter if you're within 5 feet of somebody else who's just great, love it.
What do you think of Way of the Shadow?
I think like it's cool, it's very evocative and very vibes. I think, but I do think like the Way of the Open Hand, instantly I'm just like, but then I could do all this stuff. So I guess it's a way of getting around the battlefield sneaky like, and not as open perhaps.
It's a stealth focused character. But why can't you have an assassinate feature like they do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I would say you can swap opportunist for quivering palm.
So you don't get like double proficiency in stealth either. You could get that as an option for one of your proficiencies.
But you do get passed out a trace though, which is like plus 10.
You do, but like I feel like at this point,
and to everyone around you,
if you're sneaking around, you want to have that expertise in stealth and silence and passive, so that even dragons couldn't necessarily pinpoint where you are.
I think that's the thing though. It's like maybe I would be happy if someone said, I want to go down the assassinate route. Then I'd be like, you could take quivering palm at 17th instead of opportunist.
Yeah,
totally.
Absolutely. The way it's themed. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Just theming it as this point, like, is you're completely silent. You get advantage on your attack because you're behind them, 5-finger death punch, and you leave.
And if you've got greater invisibility, they don't know it's you.
Well, even then you do your attack. So you've got 2 actions. You've gone into the shadow behind them. You come out, you're not invisible at that point. You just get advantage on your attacks. It says you get advantage on melee with when you've come out of a shadow. Advantage, hit 5-finger death punch.
Yeah.
Step back into the shadow.
Action,
invisible. Click your fingers, they're dead.
Yeah.
Which is a bonus action. So literally you've just gone, thump, bosh, hidden, dead.
So efficient. But then in our final player's handbook,
this is the biggest one. I'm really like, oh crap, we've actually got a massive.
Don't worry, we'll be fine. The Way of the Four Elements. Essentially, this is your last Airbender Avatar-S type thing. It's you learn to harness the elements. So when you focus your ki, you can align yourself with the forces of creation and bend the 4 elements to your will. So some members of this tradition dedicate themselves to a single element, but others weave the elements together. So I do think you can be quite evocative in how you describe your attacks. And then it talks about, obviously, like, tattoos, etc., about things that are commonly imagined as representations of these key powers. Instantly, I'm like, okay, I can definitely see media touchstones, which I would go to if I wanted to play a particular monk using this subclass.
And this is where we get our more spellcasting version that I was saying, like, could be part of the standard thing. But there's a lot of it's a lot. There's, you get spell the key point, monk levels, certain key points that you need to use, maximum key points for a spell. And then it gives you for all of these different ones, it gives you Disciple of the Elements at the beginning, where you get to choose the tradition at 3rd level, which is all these are the one. You harness the power of the 4 elements, and then something requires you to spend key points each time you use it. And you gain 1 additional element of discipline at 6th, 11th, and 17th. So there's these different disciplines. So the casting for each of them, once you reach 5th level in the class, you can spend an additional key point to increase the level of elemental discipline spell that you cast, provided the spell has an enhanced effect higher level, such as Burning Hands does. So then Oh,
I'm just seeing the sweat on Hamilton's brow looking this through.
I know, but I read it and I was like, I don't get it. Basically, it's a second level spell. It would be 2 key points.
Yeah.
And then you can then use an additional key point at 5th level to go, well, that's now a 3rd level spell, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly that. So it's always going to be that base cost of 2. And then as you increase it up, you can use additional key points.
But there are different ones because all of them are different, like require different key points. So like, they're not by level order. That makes it, you read it and you're like, I don't fucking understand. Yeah, you get some really cool ones. And as I said, it's a maximum up to the ones that you get at 17th level are 6, basically. Things you get at 13th level are 5. Things you get between 9th and 12th are 4th. And like, that's basically how it breaks down.
Yes. So the reason why I was saying this, in case it's not obvious, so this is what it is. You just pick out whatever discipline you get at each class feature you get, essentially. You just get another one, you get another one. So very much like, I'm thinking those magical secrets that bards get as well. It's not for anything specific. It's just like you get another one of these disciplines, essentially, just to make that very clear.
Oh, so you can only choose one?
I think so.
You learn one additional elemental discipline.
Or you could replace it. When you get a new one at 6th, 11th, 17th, you then can replace one you already know if you wish to. At most, you'll have 4 of these, so it's very customizable for what you're doing.
Yeah, you know elemental attunement and one other elemental discipline.
Exactly. So let's talk about elemental attunement then, because every monk will have that. So you use your action to briefly control the elemental forces within 30 feet of you, causing one of the following effects. Create a harmless sensory effect, basically almost like thaumaturgy, essentially, or druidcraft, using some sort of like air, earth, fire, or water. Instantaneously snuff out or light a candle, as always, or small campfire, which is always useful, just like fire, there we go. Chill or warm a pound of non-living material for up to an hour. Now, you might think, what the hell is the point in that? Well, let me tell you, if you're up a mountainside and you maybe need to get warm quickly, warming up the front of your tabard or the front of your armor, that's pretty useful to just quickly do that without spending a spell slot per se, and if you don't have thaumaturgy. Or cause earth, fire, water, or mist that can fit within a 1-foot cube to shape itself into a crude form that you design for a minute. You're like, what could that be? But then again, it could be like you're going to, I don't know, cast almost like an illusion type figure, someone in the mist perhaps, or maybe someone on fire to like frighten someone away. Again, that's what I would do for flavoursome things, perhaps.
Someone's at a campfire, want to freak them out, and you just start making a face appear in the fire and go, I am the master that's going to get you. So
that's very much a flavoursome thing, but it means, again, what a great distraction you can do. People are like, what the heck is that? And you're like, right, now for the other monks to jump into position, you know. As a nice one, flavoursome was, again, I remember this is at like 3rd level, you're already going to get lots of combat stuff from your main class. So I can imagine this for me is all right as a freebie, but then obviously you can get the other ones as well. So looking at it in general, I think the ones that you can get from 3rd level are, I'll just name them. So I think it's Fangs of the Fire Snake, Fists of Four Thunders, Fist of Unbroken Air, Rush of the Gale Spirits,
Shake the Flowing River,
Sweeping Cinder Strike, and Water Whip.
Water Whip.
So again, it is using those elements, you know, using them, whether it is you're casting a particular spell like Burning Hands, that's the Cinder Strike one essentially. The Water Whip is like that, you're creating that whip of water to shove an unbalanced creature, which I think is pretty ace essentially.
It's up to 3d10 bludgeoning damage plus 1d10 if they vary key point, which is pretty cool.
I like that, yeah.
Fangs of the Fire Snake, you can spend 1 key point to cause tendrils of flame to stretch out from your fists and feet. An arm strike increases by 10 feet for that action as well as the rest of the turn, which is really cool.
I love that. There's this fire punch coming straight towards you and it just extends from your own hand. So cool.
And it does 1d10. I don't know what I would say. 1d10. But to do 1d10 fire damage to the person that you hit.
Yeah, and if you spend 1 key point when the attack hits, and not only with the bludgeoning damage that turns to fire damage, you get another d10 on top of that. That's pretty well. And then, like, you know, Fist of Four Thunders, that's just 2 points for Thunder Wave. And then Rush of the Gale Spirits, that's 2 points for Gust of Wind.
Unbroken Air, Blast of Compressed Air that strikes like a mighty fist. 30 feet, strength saving throw, 3d10 plus 1d10 for everything. Push the creature up 20 feet away. Kind of similar to the other one. Water Whip brings them closer to you.
Yeah. The fangs and the unbroken air is like, get out.
And then Shape of the Flowing River as well. You get to spend 1 key point to use an area of ice or water no larger than 30 feet on a side within 120 feet of you. You can change the water to ice within the area and vice versa. You can reshape ice in the area in any manner you choose. You can do ice sculpturing. You can raise or lower the ice's elevation, create or fill a trench, erect or flatten a wall, form a pillar. For example, if you affect 30-foot square, you can create a pillar up to 50 feet high, raise or lower this. You could just fuck about with water and ice, basically.
But again, if you had a bit of time, like we need to ambush someone, it's a way to. Again, it is very much the Rivendell scene, like with the horses and the river, sort of. Like you can describe it like that per se. The one thing I'd say, we won't need to go into all the rest per se, unless you would like to. It just feels like there's enough. Again, I do find that not by level order really frustrating, and that happens with quite a few of these as well. Like the Warlock Invocations has the same problem. Fighting maneuvers, it's always alphabetical rather than here's what you can get by level and splitting them out like that. So split by level, then by alphabetical would, I think, be a lot easier.
Have. These are basically the spells I would have, a lot of the spells we were saying we should choose in the other things.
Yeah.
That's the spells. This proves my sort of problem with this. It's a bit like the Ranger, where the class only really works based on a multitude of really cool things you get in the subclasses.
Yes, yeah.
And actually the class falls down because actually some of those elements should just be technically within the class, fundamentally. And you can expand upon them in the subclasses, but it feels a bit like they didn't have enough ideas.
Yeah, so the one thing it makes me think of, and I appreciate we've not talked about barbarians personally, we've done it on this podcast, but we've not talked about it. So the Storm Herald Barbarian, it does fire, ice, and lightning as their three things. And for each one of the things, they'd be like, you have an aura, you can do this, you can do, and it just splits it into each level. It is themed around that element. And that's the thing I think here is that you pick an element. It's the same thing. You get an aura, but it's different at each one.
Totally agree.
It just makes it so much simpler because you've only got 4 elements. I mean, obviously, if we're going to do like an inner planes, can you imagine like an ooze monk, for example? Yeah. That would be cool. Or a vacuum monk.
Vacuum monk. That's cool.
Again, I could definitely see this as something that we could easily like create our own elemental disciplines, perhaps. But I just think like you're just going to shape it up a little bit. I would just be like, have the 4 main elements and then have like, inner planes monk.
Can I suggest a crazy 1D&D thing?
Do it.
There's no such thing as a subclass.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me that you just have the list of all the stuff and then you make your own.
Mix and match and build it yourself.
Yeah.
I think you can have the subclasses as like, here's your one.
Suggestions for how to make.
Suggested to make, but actually that makes so much more sense. That would be the thing to make this different is like each level you get to choose. And you can customize and create min-max however you bloody like. Because if I was going to take from these 3, I would be like, okay, well, I'm taking Quivering Palm because it's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Shadow Step.
Yeah.
I will probably take a bit of these 4 elements.
Yeah, I think so too.
And mix that with the baseline. A monk, that's the monk I want. I want something that can jump through the shadows, do the Quivering Palm, and when it uses it hit, when I'm just hitting about, I can just like put some Burning Hands. I only want the baseline ones, nothing for 6th or 17th level. I'll just take the base. That'll be my base thing.
Yeah, like they had like, for example, there's like the clench of the North Wind, which is that hold person thing. So again, like that, almost like that Vulcan pinch. You pinch someone and they go, and you're like, right, now I can talk to you.
I take the Fire Snake, so I could be at a distance, just from the shadows, shooting fiery snakes
the
at
fists
people.
coming at you. Yeah, I do agree with that with the elemental stuff. It just feels a little bit all over the place, and I think that's just the format of it. But I think like keep it simple. But I think the same for every class. You have suggested like we'll go on to it at some point. We'll talk about the fighter and suggestions from Tasha's, which talks about if you want to make a certain type of fighter, here's the feats you'd need to take. And I think that's really helpful. But then maybe if I just want to be like, okay, I have suggested subclasses, but then I can mix and match. Unfortunately, neither of us are really game designers, so it probably will absolutely break the game if we just say if there has to be some sort of prerequisites, perhaps. Yeah, it'll be interesting to try like proper mix and match. And we talked about it with the Epic Player Guide as well. Is that if you had multiclass, we haven't really spoken about multiclassing in this particular monk class anyway. But having that ability to, when you get to the end of level 20, and then you want to go do Epic, it says, well, you choose which features you want, and then you go into those Epic levels, but you have to be fully 20 in monk.
Yeah, exactly.
You can pick the features that you like from other things. And I was like, yeah, that totally makes sense. When we came in, sat down for this, I hadn't really thought about like what kinds of one-shots could we do. But yeah, sports team related would be so much fun. And I think it would be something that we could introduce people to who maybe aren't versed in, because everyone loves playing spellcasters, or everyone likes playing, I'm just going to full force like barbarians. But here, if you wanted as a player or have a group of players who are like, we really want to get the ins and outs, we're struggling with combat a little bit, playing all monks and then using that ability, it just makes you think a little bit more about the turn order, about using everything. So yeah, I'd like to play a monk now. Like I really feel like excited to try them out and like really hone in on it.
I think we should charge the listeners with letting us know if they'd like to see us do one-shots. Oops all.
Obviously, next time we'll look at the other traditions that come from. We've got Xanathar's Guide to Everything, Tasha's Cauldron of. I was going to say Tasha's Cauldron of Hideous Laughter, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. We also have Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. That's coming back. We've also got Fizzbands, one of our favourite books from a couple of years ago. And then, of course, we've got Critical Role, the Taldore campaign, Explorer's Guide to Wildmount as well, where it talks about the way of the Cobalt Soul. So lots to look into there. So that's another 8 we'll be looking into.
There's a lot of stuff in that Cobalt Soul. It's definitely home. You know, it's definitely homebrew because they've given you more. Because Matt Mercer is generous.
So we'll be looking at those next time. But thank you so much, Hamilton, for coming with me on this journey of
absolute pleasure.
Like fighting fitness, etc. I'm very, very keen to do more. Where can we find you? What things can we expect from the wonderful world of Hamilton? Soon.
It's good. I think the Kickstarter will be finished by now.
I think it will.
It will be. But hopefully, I mean, it was doing well so far. So even if it just stopped today, it's done really well. So that's...
Will you be having back a kit pre-order? Will people be able to get it elsewhere?
Yes, there will be ways to purchase this after the fact. I'm going to focus on delivering the actual item straight away to the people that have backed.
Yep.
And with that, I'm going to give a bit of leeway to people who have the digital copies so they can have those digital copies for a bit beforehand. So that will be that. So I would probably say those are all going to go out in April time. So I'd say in the summertime, it will probably then go up as I'd say then we'd be open shop once again, I'd say, in the summer.
Yeah.
Other than that, Bows of Spell General will still be coming out and Fueled by Chaos. Lots more Warhammer-y stuff going on there. I'm trying to do a little bit more reactive videos on Warhammer. And because tonight I have a spare moment because Fiona's abandoning me for our evening session. Classic Fiona, busy, does everything. Fiona.
Passive-aggressive coming back out again.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm here all night. So I will promote you some more of those. So you can find that on Fueled Chaos, all one word, are everywhere. And talking of being everywhere...
very good, very good. It's as smooth as a punch with flames coming out of the fist. What Am I Rolling is a twice-monthly tabletop RPG one-shot podcast. As always, it's going very, very well. The interviews are starting to come out now. We've just had, at time of recording, the one that came out, which was an interview with Daniel Hand, who's the RPG therapist, and how he uses his own RPG system with his clients. Usually younger clients, about exploring issues that are affecting them, which is really great. We'll also have an interview with Game Therapy UK, which is a charity, UK-based charity, which uses primarily D&D, but other systems as well, with groups of vulnerable people, such as the unhoused and the war veterans, and just discussing, what are the benefits for doing that sort of thing? And the answer is loads of benefits. Why aren't we funding this sort of stuff? Keep us all connected and actually give us some social skills and build us back up from a place which is quite dark for some people. And we've got a few other one-shots and stuff. And as Hamilton has alluded to, yes, I'll be, I don't know if it'll be out by the time this is out, but I am doing some various recordings for various things coming out on other people's channels, which is very exciting. I will be playing, I'll tell you what the system I'll be playing. I'll be playing Orbital Blues, which is this Sad Cowboys one. And essentially, I might have hecked myself a little bit by basically picking Del Boy to embody as my character. So I'm a bit of a wheeler dealer, which I know I don't look it. The face paint's coming out again, Hamilton. You'll be glad to know I'm going to have the awful beard and maybe more of a mustache, perhaps, when we record.
Are you going to do a Cockney accent?
Oh, I'm going to try and do what I call an East End accent. We'll see how it works. Might be a lot of like that sort of hand gestures, which doesn't work well on audio. I think that's everything.
I think that's it. Yeah.
All right.
I need to eat.
We need to go get lunch, I think.
Here's a reference for Game Changer. I'm hungry.
You're hungry.
I'm hungry.
With all that out of the way, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you
on the flip side.
Ba, 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 ba.